I don't know if we say Good Yom Tif on Yud Shevat. It's Farta, day of Hilula. But we certainly could say Afreilichen Yud Shevat, in light of the fact that the Rebbe wrote about Beis Nissen, the yahrzeit of the Rebbe Rashab, that for us primarily it's actually Yom HaChtorah, the day of the crowning of his Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe. So for us Chassidim, in addition, certainly for being Yom Hilula of the Frierdiker Rebbe, but it's a celebration. It's a day when the Rebbeishter, Almighty God, gave us a Rebbe. That's Yom HaChtorah of our Rebbe. Many Chassidim refer to Yud Shevat as Rosh Hashanah LaHiskashrus, the Rosh Hashanah, the New Year, for connecting to the Rebbe. The day when we say, we seek out and we say, let's connect. What's the means to connect? Hiskashrus, Ari Minkwitz mentioned in passing earlier in his wonderful remarks that in those days people didn't talk about it much. It wasn't a subject. But in reality, it's a subject that the Rebbe put on the forefront. In the first years after Yud Shevat, Tafshin Yud, spoke about Hiskashrus non-stop for a few years, and then, of course, later, the Parsha of the Svarim, he spoke about Hu B'Chaim and the connection of Chassidim to the Rebbe.
Hello?
The Rebbe made this a central thing in the Rebbe's Nesius, that Chassidim and the Rebbe are one. We just come from Hey Tevis. Somebody, I hear your kids in the background.
It's so delicate. It's so
never,
I'm hearing your kids in the background. Is this Denmark? Hello?
That to make it very perfect. They shouldn't have asked.
Kinderlach? So we just come from Hey Tevis. There's a wonderful song that the kids were singing. Chassidim, the Rebbe, and the Svarim are all one. This was sung many a Friday night at our own table. The Rebbe brought this theme home, Hey Tevis, and throughout the Nesius. Perhaps most notably in the first year, the Rebbe wrote a well-known letter to Chassidim, Gimel Tammuz, of that first year. Ironically enough, the Rebbe wrote in Gimel Tammuz, Tafshin Yud, to Chassidim, and he wrote, the language is, I'll call Echad ve'echad Ladas, that every one of us has to know. The Rebbe says, Lahamik Lizbainin, to think deeply. The idea of Das is explained in Tanya. The Rebbe says that each of us has to connect to the concept that Hu Hanasi v'Harosh, that he is our Rebbe, he is our Nasi, he's our head, and all the Hashpas, Begashmis, and Baruchnis, all the energies that we need materially and spiritually come through him. So the Rebbe clearly made this a pivotal part of the Nesius, that this is a Neshama Klalis, and we are all Neshama Pratis. It's a central soul and individual souls. We're connected. We're not just that he's a teacher, not just a spiritual leader, but in fact one and in fact connected. And there's extraordinary language in one of the Igris Kedesh, one of the letters of the Rebbe. The Rebbe writes, it's known, Chazal tell us, our sages tell us, Kol ha'malamed ben chavei teira ki liyolde. One who teaches someone teira, it's as if they gave birth to them. Says the Rebbe, but that's true with any teacher of teira. A Rebbe and Chassidim, it's not ki'ilu, it's not as if, but it's yoldei mamish, it's literal. This is a quote from one of the Rebbe's letters in Chele Gimel Igris Kedesh. If you want to look it up, Igris Tafshin Yutes. I'm told that there's other letters that have a similar language. It's not as if we are the Rebbe's children, the Rebbe writes, Yoldoi Mamish. It's literal. There's also a Sikh of Yud Shevat, Tafshin Chavav, one of the famous Yud Shevat Sikhs, where the Rebbe speaks about Zarei B'chaim, Hu B'chaim, and the Rebbe explains it in a very literal sense. The Rebbe says there that every chassid is the Rebbe Zakin, the child, and he explains in a literal sense how a child, and how do you illustrate it. It's a very deep sikha, but I'm bringing out one point. The Rebbe uses the language there, that he sort of implanted himself into his chassidim. The Rebbe therefore explains, if you look around, this is Tafshin Chavav, 16 years after Yud Shevat, and you see chassidim, and they're living with Yiddishkeit in a way that you can only get from a Rebbe, and you wonder, how do you have such people? So the Rebbe will explain to you, because it's a chareingesetzt in Zare, because a Rebbe is a father of Chassidim, just like a father, in the simple DNA sense, implants himself. The child is one extension of the father. In a spiritual way, a Rebbe, it's a chareingesetzt in Zare. He put a piece of himself into every Chassid, and therefore the Rebbe says we can see 16 years later, Lebedik Yidden that are living in Yiddishkeit and Yiddishamayim in a way that only a Rebbe could accomplish. We see clearly where we are now, as dark it is and as painful as it is, and we're waiting any second for this Rega Cut and this darkness to stop, and we know for sure that the Rebbe's promised Mashiach's on the way. But on the other hand, we're seeing in the years since Gimel Tammuz, we look around and we see Chassidish Bachrim and Chassidish girls in our midst, and we see Lubavitch and the Shluchim growing and booming. I just spent Shabbos at the oil. Chassidish Bachrim, who not they didn't see the Rebbe, almost their father didn't see the Rebbe. That's not true, but people literally, they were born in Tafshin Samach, and they're kochen sich in a maimer, in a vort, a sicha, extraordinarily. And the simple explanation is hu b'chayim, because the Rebbe said, Yolde Mamish, it's a father. He put himself into his kids. We're Pashat the Rebbe's kinderlach. So based on this, I want to suggest a few takeaways. Who am I to speak? But the Farbrengen has to have a bottom line, otherwise it doesn't have what the Rebbe calls the mezaktis, hisvadas pe'ilis. So I want to make a few suggestions. First of all, and I'm speaking to Chassidim on the phone and to myself, that we should start the day, every day, thinking about the Rebbe first thing in the morning. Where do I get it from? Rabbi Yitzchak Groner, Olav Hashem, the well-known shliach in Melbourne, Australia for many years, told over a story that when the 1940s, when the Frierdiker Rebbe was still in 770, and our Rebbe was known as the Ramash, and very often the Ramash would go upstairs to the Frierdiker Rebbe's office and come down to where the elevator is, where the dollars were. And the Bachrim would be there, and they anticipated the Ramash, in other words, the Rebbe coming down from the previous Rebbe, and they wanted to be there because often the Rebbe would express feelings and things that were told. And there are many stories like that where the Ramash came down, the Rebbe came down and said things that were on his mind were just communicated by the previous Rebbe. So one such story was that the Rebbe came down from the Frierdiker Rebbe, and there were a number of Bachrim there, including Rabbi Yitzchak Groner, Olav Sholom, near the elevator, and the Rebbe said that Yeder Chassid, I don't know if it's a quote correctly, but I'm close as I remember, Yeder Chassid darf trachten wegen der Sidereinu jeden in der Früh noch Birchas HaShachar, that every Chassid is to think about the Rebbe every morning after Birchas HaShachar, after the morning blessings. Then the Rebbe paused and said, or perhaps even before the morning blessings. And he started to cry. That's the story Rabbi Groner told over. The Rebbe comes down and says that every chassid should think about the Rebbe every morning after Birchas HaShachar, and perhaps before, and he starts to cry. I often thought about this. And what does it mean before Birchas HaShachar? Before Birchas HaShachar, after Birchas HaShachar, I understand. You think about the Rebbe, he's your madrich, he's the nasi, he tells you what to do. Before Birchas HaShachar, all we say is, Moida ani lefanecha. You talk about your neshama, you talk about the Eibush giving you neshama. What does it mean to think about the Rebbe before Birchas HaShachar? It occurred to me when I was learning one of the Rebbe's sichos in Kuntres and Yana, where the Rebbe speaks that Moida ani, we don't just thank the Eibush that we have a neshama, that we're alive and not Chas Sholom dead. But we thank the Eibush that we have a Yiddish neshama. So I say, what does a chassid think? A Yiddish neshama. We belong to Doida Shvi, where the Rebbe revealed to us something that probably certainly was true always since the first Nasi, Moshe Rabbeinu ran after all the sheep. But the Rebbe was Megala and gave keches that the Nasi hu HaKoil, that every Yid is part of the neshama clause, is revealed in a real palpable way. The proof is that we're very simple people, and yet we're able to really connect and do what the Rebbe wants. So the Rebbe brought to the fore the idea that a Nasi hu HaKoil, that who is you and me and all of us, we're not who we think alone, but we're part of this gigantic neshama of the Rebbe. So you wake up in the morning, before Birchas HaShachar, you're in bed. You say, Moida ani lefanecha, thank you, Eibishter, Tat in Himmel, Shechzarta bi nishmasi, give me back my neshama. And what kind of neshama? It's a neshama of the Rebbe, of this giant neshama. That's the neshama that I have a part of, because Deira Shvi, wow, what a simcha. So that's one atzah that we could have a takeaway, Pasha, to wake up with the Rebbe, that the day starts, that the Eibishter gave us this neshama, which is part of this. Second point is the idea that there's no shortcuts, says in Hayom Yom, Hiskashus al de limud teiraseh. Everything is important, but the ultimate Hiskashus comes from Poshet, learning the Rebbe's Siches and Mamorim and Igris Kodesh. I heard once in the name of Rabbi Yoel Kandel, Zayin Gesund, that he said, like in a jokey way, that somebody told him, he says, he asked him, do you learn the Rebbe's Mamorim and the Rebbe's Siches of our Rebbe? So the Yid said, I learned a little bit. He says, what do you mean? He says, I learned for Haskalah, for the philosophical Hasidus ideas, I learned the Rebbe Rashab's Hasidus. For Avodah, for the emotional self-betterment, I learned the Frierdiker Rebbe. Mamarim. And 4, his kashers for connecting, I learned the Rebbe's. So Rabbi laughed and he said, I don't understand. If you gave away your mind to the Rebbe Rashab and your heart to the Frierdiker Rebbe, what are you left with? What are you connecting to the Rebbe? Your lips? His kashers obviously means mind and heart. And in the same letter that I quoted earlier, the Rebbe clearly said, and it's in many, many letters, countless, that each day a chassid has to have a set time to learn the Rebbe's chassidus. And there's a lot of people on the phone, men and women, and various levels of understanding. It doesn't matter, even children. But each of us on our level need to understand, the Haskashrus comes, you want to feel the Rebbe's presence, you want to feel the connection when you walk into the oil, that this is real, this is alive, and hu chai. You want to feel it and know the emes that the Rebbe is thinking about you and your family every moment. How do you create that? How do us simple people connect to Ishalikit, the Neshama of Atzilus, to such a Nasi Hadeir? And the answer is primarily through Limud Teiraseh, every day setting around time to learn, and not just to learn it, as we said, because of his gashus, to learn it, to connect, to enjoy it, to have a geschmack, to understand with a little effort and the right teachers, and there's so many available now online in audio, video, etc., we can have a geschmack and enjoy it and realize that if the Eibishter gave us this Rebbe, his Torah in the end of the day is going to be the most tailor-made for our generation, the most geschmack. Often I hear from people, it's not comfortable even to repeat it, that the Mamarim of the earlier Rabbeim, they're longer, more explanatory. But you know what? If this is our Rebbe's Mamarim, and we put ourselves into it, and the Sichis and the Igris, and whatever level you're at, there's no question that this is tailor-made, and in the end you'll say, wow, it's so Gishmak, as much as Chassidus was Gishmak, and it is any Chassidus and any Torah, but ultimately we come to the realization that this is so Gishmak beyond Hanechmadim Mizab Mipazrav, and then it gives you a pneumistic kesher, a connection. You see the Rebbe's genius, simply spoken, and you also start to think like the Rebbe thinks, and you start to feel the Rebbe's guiding you in every single way, because the Torah is anon, nafshi, ksavis, yahavis. The Torah of a tzaddik is just like the Eibush to put himself into Torah. Tzaddikim doimin leboidam, tzaddikim are similar to their creator, and the Rebbe is found in his Torah. You know, they'd say the old joke that a guy went to buy a horse. He went to buy a horse, and he decided horses are very expensive, apparently, to feed. So he's going to slowly train the horse not to eat. And every day he'll feed him a little less. And eventually the horse won't have to eat, and he'll have a free ride. It won't cost him money for the hay, whatever it is that they eat. So every day he fed him less and less. And it worked 5 days, 10 days, 20 days, 25 days. The 30th day the horse died. So he said to his wife, it's such a pity. We almost made 30 days. The horse was just about ready to live without food, and then he died on me. The parable I'm mentioning is that people complain, I don't feel the Rebbe's presence. How do I know that he's with me? Of course, we have it in emunah and faith, but faith, ganva pumachtait, is not enough. The answer is the horse can't live without food, a chassid can't live without chassidus, and particularly the Rebbe's chassidus and all chassidus, and on a daily basis. That's a second takeaway. A third takeaway I want to share, that to simply to make a hachlata from Yud Shevat, to realize on a regular basis how lucky we are, and as much as we miss the Rebbe and the pain, which is real, but to also feel a sense of simcha. I want to share a sikha which is maybe not known to many of us. Shabbos Parshas B'Shalach, it's right after Yud Shevat, Tafshin Yud Daled. It was extraordinary. Farbrengen, the Rebbe was very open and very revealing. And the Rebbe said then that this is the end of the 3 years, which is the years of Arla for a tree, 3 years of the Rebbe's leadership. And the Rebbe said then that now that I have 3 years, so to speak, in a very humble way, the Rebbe said, okay, so now I'm going to take the reins and I want to make a statement. I'm not quoting accurately, but the Rebbe said, now I want to say something as the one that's the custodian of the previous Rebbe's vineyard after the 3 years. And the Rebbe said an announcement. Number one, the Rebbe said, that with this koyach of this moment, with this power, I want to say that any one of the chassidim who need to be blessed with children, zarechai v'kayama, should be blessed with children. Number two, anyone of the chassidim who needs to be blessed with parnasa b'harchava, with abundant livelihood, should be blessed with abundant livelihood. And then the Rebbe said a third thing. One more thing. You could think, what could that be? Having healthy, wonderful children and having a livelihood, these are quite important. What's number 3? You know what it is? The Rebbe said, people walking around with melancholy should lift themselves above the melancholy. I saw the Sikhet, realized, it hit me that the Rebbe, to him, this is pivotal. A chassid has to be high on life. We have Eibishter, we have Chassidus, we have Te'ameh Chaim Zachu, we're tasting Teirasa Shel Mashiach, even before Mashiach comes this next minute, this next second, and we have this galus of the Rebbe. And a chassid of Deira Shvi, which the Rebbe revealed to us time and again and again and again, is simply saying, you are me. Yolde Mamish, you're my kinderlach. You're not my kinderlach in theory. You're not my kinderlach because I taught you. You're a piece of my soul. I put myself into you. How could we ever walk around without a simcha on the inside? Not, as the Rebbe once said, Machmed the Lippen, that he's moving his lips, an inner sense of well-being, with all the challenges of life and with all the tzebruchenkeit of the galus and everything else, but at the same time, an inner sense of well-being. Ashreinu, as Levi said earlier, Matev Chalkeinu, we're pashit, the Rebbe's kinderlach. Wow, there's a feeling of a joy. You walk in, and you walk in, and this is what I want to suggest, that Yud Shevat, personalize it. You're the Rebbe's child, a Ben Yachid and a Bas Yechida. We're not just his children, but we're an only child. Any parent on the line knows that to a father or a mother, each child is as precious as an only child. I once heard you're only as happy as your least happy child. You're only as happy as your least happy child. You can have unheard of many children. If one of them is not happy or not doing well, Rahman al-Islam, it's on your mind full time. And if this is true with you and me, simple people, a Rebbe, and he writes, Yolde Mamish, we're his kinderlach. Yud Shevat is about you and about me. And I say you, I mean it singular. Let's take Yud Shevat, and there's thousands of Chassidim and tens of thousands, and there's millions of admirers, and the Rebbe's taking over the world and preparing for his galus and all the big stuff. Personalize it. Tonight, tomorrow, if you have a chance to go into the oil or to send in by fax and by email or whatever, and learn a maimer and connect with the Rebbe, close your eyes and look at a picture and a video and say, and know that Yud Shevat is about you, B'shvili Nivra Ha'olam. The whole Yud Shevat, the Rebbe is celebrating because he has a chassid or a chassidah, which is you. And this is the absolute truth that the Rebbe wants us to know, because if it's a father, each individual. And with that, the final takeaway, I mentioned 3 takeaways. The Meida I need to start in the morning. Number 2, to learn the Rebbe's chassidus on a daily basis. And number 3, the idea to feel the ufgehebenkeit, the feeling of well-being and fortune, that we have such a neshama klolos and such a shepherd. And the final takeaway, to stay in constant contact with the Rebbe. I don't know how else to say it. To write to the Rebbe every time there's good news. To write to the Rebbe every time there's a challenge. To write to the Rebbe on a regular basis, a duch. I'm going to share something personal. For many years on Shlichus, I didn't write a duch on a regular basis. I go to the oil often because I'm very close and nearby geographically, but and I'll find myself writing a duch after. A duch means, for those who don't know, it means an accounting of what's been going on, of what I've been doing, a report. So, and I didn't write on a regular basis. It was random. And then at one point, more recently, I said to myself, this is not right. He's your boss. So I opened up a spreadsheet, and I said to myself, I said, anything that I'm serious about in life, I have a spreadsheet. Anything that I'm serious, I need to have my kids' social security numbers. I need to know who's my next fundraising meeting. I need to know how the budget is doing. I have a spreadsheet. How come I don't have a spreadsheet for my duch, for my report? So I started making a spreadsheet. And I have a column saying how many tefillin did you put, and how many often did you have a shir with people, how many people came to that shir, how many people came to shul, every detail as much as possible, 10 or 15 columns. And I find myself suddenly being a different chassid. It used to be that I put on tefillin every time I went to the doctor, or the dentist, or a taxi driver, or if a Yid walks into Chabad even, I'm a shliach, I'm running different operations and budgets. Now, I'm not running around a mitzvah tefillin the whole day. You miss opportunities. Suddenly, how can I miss? I have a duch. And whenever possible, you grab, at the end of the month, without any extra effort. You add up the spreadsheet. There's a program called Excel, and you just add it up. You don't even have to count it. 33, 45, 40. Without effort, it's there. How many pizzas fell in, how many mezuzahs went up. We have a daily share in the morning after Shachrit. It's a small share. It could be 2 people, 5 people. Whoever decides to stay after Shachris. And I never cared. Who cares? It's the same people. Suddenly I have a duch. So every morning after Shachris, I'm running around the shul and I'm schlepping in one more yid. Because to me there's no doubt that the Rebbe wants to know, was it 5 or 6? Each yid is Olam Mole. So I'm just suggesting perhaps as a takeaway that each of us, the Rebbe said that we're all shluchim, we're all soldiers of the Rebbe. Anash, men, women, it doesn't make a difference whether it's Mivtza Neshek, we go to the wherever we go, we're soldiers, we're in the office, we go to work, did we go to Mincha, did we bring someone else to do tefillin? Everyone in their own way, did we learn Ambam, 3 prakim, 1 Perek, did we do it correctly? Whatever it is that a person knows that ever wants to do, and suddenly when you have such a system, it's always clear what the Rebbe wants. It's not a question, does the Rebbe want me to put on tefillin with the guy or not? It's always obvious. It's not a big problem to decide because you know what the Rebbe wants. And I want to just conclude with an anecdote You know, the stories that are coming out of the oil is ein mispar, there's no end. Just sharing one very brief one, that's why I chose it. That tells you that the Rebbe gives answers and brachas every time. My shver zal sein gesund, Reb Zalman Schmuckler from California. He had a custom every year, Baruch Hashem, he came to the Rebbe Simchas Torah. This is going back since Tafshin Yud Beis Yud Gimel when he was a kid. He never missed Simchas Torah by the Rebbe. When he lived in Montreal, then in LA, and this continued after Gimel Tammuz, of course, just like before. And then there was a year recently when he could not come in. I don't remember if it was last year or the year prior. And he felt bad, especially that he won't be go to the oil, Hashanah Rabbah, to get lekach. Chassid, he goes to the oil, Hashanah Rabbah, and he gets the proverbial lekach. So he calls up my wife, very upset, and he says, do me a favor, he says, Sarah, do me a favor, go to the oil, Hashanah Rabbah, take lekach for me. Obviously, take a bracha. We, of course, go Hashanah Rabbah anyway, but we went, we took a couple of our kids in the car, we said, we're going also for Zaidi to get lekach. Because Zaidi feels very bad, he was crying on the phone, he's a Chassidish Yid. We come to the oil, we walk into the room, the video's playing. And on the video, it's a piece of Jem's piece of Tisha with the Rebbe. Who do I see? My shver, zal sein gesund, getting lekach from the Rebbe. Now, anyone who's gone to the oil and Mitanemes has seen hundreds of such stories, so there's no need to elaborate. But the point is just to tell one fresh story and a personal one. The point is that we have a Rebbe in the language Yesh Lanu Abba Kadisha. He thinks about us. He thinks about you and me the whole time and everything. We're never alone, as the songs go from the kids in camp. But we need to ask. We need to ask. We have problems and we have challenges with chinuch and with parnasa, whatever it is, health. But we have a Father. And he could help and he could bench us. And we have to reach out. You know, anyone who's a father and a mother knows that if my child has a problem that they don't come and cry to me and ask me for help, we're hurt deeply. How come you didn't come? You don't know that I love you? You didn't come to ask for my help? Sometimes Chassidim don't want to go bother. No, we have to go. And the Rebbe helped and wird sicher helfen. And because Mamish, the main Yeshua of Hatzalah, he'll slap us out of this galus and dance to this galus very, very soon. Amen.